Yes, we've now reached part 3 of why Classic Who's lack of diversity does not offend me. So, hello guys, and if you've not seen my previous videos to this series of videos, I admit you might want to go back and rewatch those because I'm going to jump right on in. And I admit, guys, this is a re-recording of my first initial take on this video because I realized something. Because I filmed all 3 of these videos on the same day, I released the last video on Valentine's Day and said nothing about Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to all of you who very much are watching my channel. And I'll be honest with you, fun fact guys, I had no idea it was even Valentine's Day for the longest time yesterday. Literally, I did not know until I went to the corner store and I got one of those lottery, cards you scratch off. I got it cash for my mother. And the woman said to me after I got it cash, "Happy Valentine's Day." That's how much of a lack of a romantic life I really do have. Well, what can you do? And honestly, I kind of like not having a romantic life. It's strange, I know, but sometimes romantic starvation leads to better writing. And writing is the only thing I know how to do with my life. So, hey, works there. And also, I have 3 cats. Yes, I am a cat lady, everyone, but it's a true statement. Somehow, when it comes to getting cats and dogs, they just fill up a void in your life that you don't need to be filled anymore for some reason. Yes, guys, I'm a cat lady. I am. So, now we're going to be kicking right back in with where we left off. Where we left off was the end of the 4th Doctor's era of why, lack of diversity in Classic Who does not offend me. Now, what also has to be remembered, before the 4th Doctor's era came to an end in around 1979, I could be wrong, check my facts with that one, but in 1979 there was a cartoon clip or comic book clip, if you will, of the 4th Doctor's adventures, and in one of them the 4th Doctor had a black female companion. So that did happen. It often gets overlooked, but that does happen. And then we go to nearing pretty much the end of the 4th Doctor's era. Now we're in the 80s. The 80s of Doctor Who, which is considered a very bad time for Doctor Who, despite that I admit there are a lot of stories in the 1980s I absolutely love. And now we're in the 5th Doctor's era. And the 80s was a good time for a lot of people in the sense that there is, again, even more cultural diffusion than before. And this is shown in the 80s, where we have Peter Davison's first season. In his second story, For to Doomsday, there's a lot of focus on cultures, and, it's a very multicultural representation in that story that often gets overlooked. Then we get, eventually, Black Orchid, where we have a person of color who's all throughout the story. Even though it's a short story, still it's there. Then you get the next season, we have Enlightenment, where you have the co-villain. Whenever there's a villain's assistant, I call them sometimes co-villains. That's just me. And he was, again, a person of color, very good actor. He did a really understated performance. He was very, very good. It doesn't get enough credit with his performance there. Then, the next season, we have, in the last season of Peter Davison, Resurrection of the Daleks, a black actor is playing a lead character all throughout the story, and he does have a lot of authority. Then we get to the 6th Doctor's era, where Doctor Who was experiencing problems. The public was not happy, and it was it had nothing to do with diversity. It just simply had to do with how the audience was viewing the writing and how it took a more violent tone when it came to the 6th Doctor era, even though there was still a lot of violence and there was blood in previous stories. There really was. Hence, you had Modern Undead. Character is bloodied. The deadly assassin. The Doctor gets the crap beat out of him. Sorry, I burped when I talked there. The Doctor got the crap beat out of him and was literally being strangled in the water and almost drowned. Whew, that's some stuff, yo. Love that story, too. Love Modern Undead, too. But then we got Mind Warp, where, again, there's a person of color. But then we get to the 7th Doctor's era. Probably the most culturally diverse, or representation of people of color, the most we've had since the second Doctor era. Yes, the first season came and went, there we go. But then the next season happens and we get one of my favorite Dalek stories, Remembrance of the Daleks. In Remembrance of the Daleks, we have a person of color who's there for only one scene. Now, people I've seen, when it came to the special features of the mutants, where they was talking about racial diversity in Classic Who, they mentioned how the black guy and it had only one scene. But what needs to be understood is that is not what this story is about when it comes to, well, I mean, it is about racial impurity and racial intolerance, but it's shown through the Daleks. The Daleks are being used almost allegorically, or if that's a term, in an allegorical sense, to represent racial intolerance to racial impurity. It's Dalek versus Dalek. And they're using that to kind of represent the idea of hatred towards difference. And having the black guy in there for one, scene, I know some people, of course, and it has been mentioned, consider that, well, you're just crossing up a checkbox. But I don't, sometimes we are so desirous for cultural diffusion or cultural diversity, we let it overpower and cloud the essence of the story or dampen a beautiful story in our eyes. I don't think that is fair. The story comes first. The presentation of that story comes first. And diversity or the views and the concepts, or issues come after that, if they come at all. And I think that scene is just there to kind of connect with the black guy, the guy working at the pub, talking to the Seventh Doctor about how his father was a cane cutter, or grandfather was a cane cutter. So I can't remember father or grandfather, sorry. So that was there, but I think that was there just to connect briefly to what the Daleks are going through. But it was not there to steal focus or be focused on that. And I'm okay with that. In fact, I prefer it. The story must always come first. Then we have, unless I got my orders mixed up, sorry if I got my orders of the stories mixed up, I think it's Happiness Patrol is next. But then we've got Happiness Patrol, where we have a black musician. His music is all throughout the story, and it's so beautiful. Wow! It's moving. It's an integral part to the story. Then we have Silver Nemesis, another black musician, and his music was the music was written for that particular story, Silver Nemesis, and it played all throughout. These are artists. It doesn't matter if they're not actors, they are artists, and their work should be represented and respected, that they were all throughout the series. Still artists. Then we have Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Oh my god, what a great story, too. I love all the stories, pretty much all of them, in the last two seasons of the Seventh Doctor era, and some of his first stories in his first season. But with that, the Greatest Show in the Galaxy, that actor, the ringleader, the guy at the very beginning, who introduces people and gets them on the stage. I can't remember his name, sorry, but he was phenomenal. He used that comedic and jesting way about him to hide that he was very menacing. Of course, he's not as scary as the clown, but let's be honest, there are very few things in life that are as scary clowns. So, then we have the next season, the last season of Classic Who. We have a black female brigadier in Battlefield. Boom! It's like, they're like, we're going for it. Then we have an Asian character who's throughout the story. Then there's the Curse of Fenric, of course, along with Ghostlight, probably reverse order. But these are period pieces, so of course they're being historically accurate with the period pieces. And that's another thing. When it comes to period pieces, I prefer them to be accurate to the culture that would be there in that story, rather than caring about racial diversity and putting people of color in a time they probably would not have been in a situation it's most likely they were not there, because you're giving inaccurate versions of history in the name of racial diversity. That's not what we're asking for. There we go. And then we have the last story. We have Survival, where again, one of Ace's friends was a woman of color all throughout the story. There was greater representation by the end, and then Doctor Who gets cancelled. Then there were even some rumors. There were some rumors that And again, I have no evidence for this. It's just some hearsay. Some say this was debated on nearing the end of having a black female companion, but the show never got around to it because the show got canceled. There's no way of knowing what was going to happen. But when it comes to Classic Who, one thing that has to be understood is I saw how they were trying. And I'm okay and I'm fine with the fact that it wasn't a priority to them, because I don't think that's how they were thinking back then. Not because they're ignorant, that's just the thought was get the right actor for the part. And again, the story comes first, the issues come second. And Classic Who found very cool ways of talking of the issues in the world around it, but in a way that was universal and dealt with outer space or other scenarios. It did a very good way of introducing these elements, but in a different way than how we see it in our world. Sometimes it's better to go the indirect route of preaching a message than the direct route, which can be polarizing, or something you see once, you say, oh, it's good, la la la, but you don't want to ever see again. Subtlety can work wonders for you, and this is speaking from a woman who in her writing does not always understand subtlety. When we writers achieve subtlety, it's glorious. It is. And also, when it comes to being a person of color, watching Classic Who, what you also have to understand is, for me, Classic Who is absolutely beautiful. Classic Who is gorgeous. And we people, in general, we connect to beauty, not just in the sexual or sensual sense. And again, I'm okay with, people being beautiful and gorgeous and all that. I know we're in a time where it's like if someone's pretty, people get mad or against it. I mean, because for the sake of looking smart. No, as a girl who's been the wing girl, where the wing guy would talk to the wing girl because her friend was always prettier than her. My friends were always prettier than me. I totally understand why the guys clung to my friends. They were gorgeous girls. I spoke to the wing guy. So I have nothing against pretty people, but I'm saying beauty in a general sense. Classic Who is beautiful. There is so much art, care, and love put into Classic Who. Even when it was struggling, there was something beautiful about it. The creation of the Doctor, of Gallifrey, of the companions, of the stories, of the world was large and absolutely gorgeous. And another thing that has to be understood and respected is that we, people of color, people always seem to look at us and say, well, we have to appeal to that person because that's what appeals to them. We, people of color, can connect to worlds and ideas that look completely different than us. We don't walk around always thinking of our color. We walk around just appreciating beauty in many various forms, in every way it can be appealed to. For example, I love Jane Austen. I like the Bronte sisters. I love Elizabeth Gaskell, her work, North and South and Wives and Daughters. And when BBC did these and they put them on TV and they did series of them, they're like works of art to me. But naturally, a person of color is not going to be in these stories. Why do I connect to it if they do not appeal to my demographic? Because we, people of color, are more than our color. We appreciate other cultures, we can appreciate what you are bringing, and we understand that is you. And we'll still respect and see the beauty that is you, as long as you in some way see the beauty that is us. As you respect the beauty that is us, we will see you and view you as beautiful as we view ourselves. We are more than just how we look. We can enjoy other things that are completely opposite than how you think we would enjoy them. And Classic Who has a universal appeal. Classic Who is beautiful. And again, for me, it's like the diversity. Oh, we have to have racially diverse people. It does not hinder my love for the show that they did not do that in Classic Who, because again, I don't think that was the focus. I don't think it's like, well, we have to cast black people here because we have to think about race here. I don't think they were thinking that way. And it was the times, and that's okay. I love all the cultural diffusion and the racial inclusion and the diversity we have now in TV. I love it. I'm just saying there is no way in God's green earth I'm going to hold that against Classic Who then. And if anybody out there is still like comparing Classic Who to New Who, saying it was not progressive, like, oh, because we got a we have a female doctor now. Well, there was discussion about the doctor being a black actor for a long time, a black male actor. It was even gestured at and joked at in Lenny Henry's, comedy sketches back in the 80s, where a black guy, Lenny Henry, was playing the doctor. This has been around for a long time, and we still do not have in New Who a black male doctor. We had a program who, lack of better terminology, cut the doctor's balls off before ever thinking of darkening his skin. So before you go judging Classic Who, New Who, are you really progressive, or did you cast a new person, female, in the show? Why did you do that? For the sake of you believe of diversity, or because you were pleasing social justice workers, and now men, universally, or when it comes to you, are no longer acceptable, so even black men fit into that mold? That is something for another day, though. I'll talk about that in another video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Thank you, you were wonderful. And I don't mean to offend anyone. If you think completely different than me, it's okay. Again, I'll talk about the last things I mentioned in the end of my video, this video, in another video, to explain more of what I was feeling. No offense to anyone who loves the 13th Doctor or anything. I'm just feeling differently than you. Thank you guys so much. You're awesome. And again, happy belated Valentine's Day.